In the modern world, many individuals spend more time pondering over which suit to buy or which car to drive than they do over the choice of their life partner. This misplaced priority has contributed to the rising number of divorces, leaving children to grow up in fragmented and often unhappy environments. One significant cause of many of these broken homes is infidelity. Infidelity, a word that evokes strong emotions and moral judgment. When a person strays from their marital vows, society tends to condemn them harshly, regardless of gender. Excuses for infidelity can vary, such as a partner being neglectful, unloving, or failing to satisfy emotional or other needs. Underneath these excuses often lies a fundamental truth: a lack of love and emotional connection. An individual caught in the throes of an affair may operate solely on their emotions, leaving rational thought behind and plunging headfirst into the affair without a thought for the consequences. At the tender age of 20, I married Emma, my first love. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party, and our connection was instantaneous. We dated for a year, a period filled with the kind of romance that seems ripped from the pages of a fairy tale. Eventually, we decided to tie the knot. The first year of our marriage was blissful, and soon we welcomed our son into the world. 3 years later, our daughter was born. Our little family was complete, and I loved Emma more with each passing day. Trust was the bedrock of our relationship. She never gave me any reason to doubt her fidelity. Our occasional quarrels were like summer storms, brief and followed by sunshine. We always found our way back to each other, quickly resolving our disagreements. 17 years into our marriage, subtle yet unsettling changes began to creep in. Emma, who had always been even-tempered, became irritable and prone to starting arguments over trivial matters. She drastically changed her appearance, dyeing her hair a color I knew she was aware I disliked, and she began wearing new, more provocative clothes. Our once vibrant intimate life dwindled to almost nothing. These changes did not happen in isolation. They coincided with her increased absence, citing work-related reasons that seemed more and more implausible. It became clear to me that something had changed drastically after a recent high school reunion she attended. My mind, once a calm sea, became a storm of suspicions and doubts. Determined to uncover the truth, I began to investigate discreetly. I reached out to some of Emma's old classmates, carefully choosing my words to avoid arousing suspicion. Through these hushed conversations, the pieces of a painful puzzle began to fall into place. Emma had rekindled a relationship with Jack, a classmate from the 10th grade. Jack, the charming and popular boy who had moved to another city, married, and had a child, had now returned. The reunion was not just a trip down memory lane, it was the spark that reignited an old flame. Their affair started that very night and quickly spiraled into a passionate, secret relationship. Emma's irritability, her sudden changes in appearance, and her frequent absences all pointed to this hidden relationship. She had become a master of deception, creating elaborate alibis that could rival those of a seasoned spy. The day I decided to confront Emma was filled with a palpable tension. I drove to Jack's address, my heart a drumbeat of dread and determination. Jack himself opened the door, his expression a mix of surprise and guilt. When I asked where Emma was, he simply nodded towards the kitchen. There she was, sitting with one leg tucked under her, a picture of casual intimacy. Her reaction to my sudden appearance was a blend of anger and resignation. "Why did you come?" "I love him." Her words struck me like a physical blow. It was clear that the Emma I had known and loved for nearly 2 decades was gone, replaced by a stranger driven by emotions I could no longer comprehend. In a final, desperate attempt to salvage some part of our relationship, I reminded her of our children, hoping to rekindle a sense of responsibility or love. But her response was cold and calculated. She suggested that the children would stay with her and Jack once they sorted out their lives, leaving them with me in the meantime. The drive home was a blur of rain and heartache. Upon returning, I sat the children down and told them that their mother had gone on a lone business trip, a lie to protect their fragile hearts. My son, perceptive beyond his years, asked if she had left for another man. His words pierced through my composure, and all I could do was nod, pulling him into a tight embrace. We sat together in silence, a vigil of shared sorrow. The next day, I filed for divorce, the finality of the act both liberating and devastating. The weeks that followed were a slow march through the bureaucracy of divorce, each day heavier than the last. Emma did not rush to introduce the children to her new life, perhaps grappling with her own guilt and demons. As if scripted by a cruel playwright, the inevitable happened. One evening, there was a knock at the door. The sound was faint, almost hesitant, yet it reverberated through the quiet, empty halls of my home, each echo a reminder of the solitude that had become my companion. I opened the door to find Emma standing there, a shadow of her former self. Her eyes, once bright and full of life, were now swollen from tears, red and puffy, a testament to the internal battle she had been fighting. Her posture was one of abject remorse, shoulders slumped, head bowed slightly, as if the weight of her guilt was too heavy to bear. "I left Jack," she confessed, her voice a mere whisper, barely audible above the sound of my own heartbeat. "I realized I never loved anyone but you." Her words hung in the air, heavy with regret and longing, each syllable a tiny dagger that pierced through the armor I had built around my heart. She begged for forgiveness, calling herself a fool, a scoundrel, willing to endure any penance as long as I did not drive her away. The pleas echoed in the silence of our home, each one a painful reminder of the love that once was and the betrayal that had shattered it. Her eyes, those once vibrant windows to her soul, were now filled with the pain of regret. She looked at me, a mixture of hope and desperation in her gaze, as if seeking some sign of the man I once was, the man who had loved her unconditionally. The remnants of our past love lingered between us, like ghosts haunting the space, reminding us of happier times, of dreams once shared and promises once made. With a calmness that belied the turmoil inside, I told her that the man she had known, the man she had married, had died that night in Jack's apartment. The trust, the bond that had held us together, was irreparably broken. I explained that while I would not prevent her from seeing our children, living together again was out of the question. The words felt like stones in my mouth, each one heavier than the last, each one a final nail in the coffin of our relationship. Emma's eyes, those windows to her soul that once sparkled with life and hope, were now filled with a pain that mirrored my own. She looked at me with a mixture of regret and longing, a desperate plea for forgiveness that I could not grant. Each glance she cast my way was a reminder of the love we once shared, now tainted by betrayal. The past, once a cherished memory, had become a haunting specter, looming over us with its shadow of unfulfilled promises and shattered dreams. In that moment, as she stood before me, I realized that the man she had known, the man who had loved her unconditionally, was gone. The trust that had been the foundation of our relationship was irreparably broken. With a heavy heart, I told her that while I would not prevent her from seeing our children, living together again was an impossibility. The words felt like stones in my mouth, each one a finality that sealed the fate of our relationship. Her reaction was a heart-wrenching mixture of despair and resignation. The reality of my words sank in, and I could see the last flicker of hope extinguish in her eyes. She stood there, silent and still, as if time itself had paused to mark the end of an era. The silence between us was thick and oppressive, filled with all the unspoken words, the shattered dreams, and the broken promises. It was a silence that spoke volumes, a silence that marked the end of our journey together. That night, driven by a despair too deep to articulate, she sought solace in her parents' home. It was a decision born out of a moment of intense emotional pain. Her parents, their faces etched with worry and heartbreak, tried to bridge the chasm that had formed between us. They pleaded on her behalf, their words filled with sorrow and hope, but my resolve remained unshaken. Each plea, each tear only deepened my conviction that we could never go back to what we once were. Now, Emma lives with her parents, trying to piece together the fragments of her shattered life. She visits the children regularly, their bond a fragile thread of continuity in the wake of our broken family. She reaches out to me, hoping for a sliver of forgiveness, a chance to rebuild, but I remain distant. The love I once felt for her is now a source of unbearable pain, a constant reminder of the betrayal that has forever altered our lives. Each day is a struggle to reconcile the past with the present, to find a way forward for myself and the children. In the quiet moments, when the house is still and the children are asleep, I wonder what might have been. I think about the life we could have had, the future that once seemed so clear and bright. But those thoughts are fleeting, quickly replaced by the harsh reality of our situation. Emma's presence, once a source of joy and comfort, is now a ghost that haunts our lives, a reminder of a love that was and a betrayal that can never be undone. The future, once filled with hope and promise, is now a murky and uncertain road, each step a reminder of the past, each step a struggle to move forward. Yet, amidst the pain and sorrow, there is a flicker of resilience. I see it in the eyes of my children, in their laughter, in their determination to find joy in the little things. They are my anchor, my reason to keep moving forward. And so, with each passing day, I take one step at a time, rebuilding my life, finding strength in the love I have for them. The road ahead is long and fraught with challenges, but I am not walking it alone. Together, we will find our way, one step at a time, towards a future that, while different from what I had envisioned, holds the promise of new beginnings and new possibilities.